So, a quick talk on detachment. What is detachment? Why should we become detached from the world? Why should we not? What should we detach from? What is there to detach from? Just detachment. Or attachment. They both work together. So, what I've come to see is that the mind naturally attaches to the world and perceptions of senses. It looks towards the world for its fulfillment and its happiness, yet only finds glimpses of what it's looking for. It seems as though when the mind attaches itself to sense perceptions and observations and physical experience and tangible touch perception, sight, sound, hearing, taste, any of the senses, it seems as though the transitory nature of physical reality causes, meaning the movement of reality, how it's always changing, causes the inability to be able to experience true happiness through perceiving through senses. And the reason would be because if the senses are always changing and everything that you're experiencing in the external world is always changing, then it's impossible for you to find a lasting sense of something in something that's changing all the time, unless you truly only love the change. So it's like, say that you think that there's happiness in loving another person, and then you come to realize that that other person is going to die. Or you come to find that there's happiness in owning a home, and then the home burns down. Or there's happiness in experiencing a meal, and then you eat the meal and there's no more meal anymore. So it's a state of continuous ups, rises, and falls of feeling. And there's never a sense of lasting just happiness or lasting fulfillment or lasting bliss. And so, speaking on detachment, it seems to be the only way to experience a lasting sense of happiness. So what is detachment? It's when the mind and senses no longer attach themselves to perceptions and attach themselves to something that's beyond sensory perception. So detachment would be finding something to attach the self to that is beyond the physical nature of reality. So it's, in my opinion, attaching the self to God, or the all-pervasive energy that makes up everything, that is in every form, but it's what gives life to all the forms. And it's not the thing. Now it's what you're seeing, it's everything, but its nature is beyond everything. So the detachment is not detachment from everything, it's attachment to something that's beyond everything. So this is where it can kind of get a little bit confusing, I guess, but like, it's really not, if you understand that really it's all about just detaching the mind from the world and attaching it to something beyond. Something that is not destroyable, something that's not going to fall apart, something that's not going to go away. So when the mind attaches itself to God, or an infinite, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent consciousness that is pure bliss and love and joy, then it will naturally start to experience pure bliss, love, and joy in everything. Because the only thing that causes a sense of negativity or sadness or upsetness in the world is the nature of the mind attaching to things, desiring different kinds of outcomes from situations, circumstances, people, places, things, sense perceptions, taste, touch, sound, sight, any of these kinds of things. It's attaching itself, its sense of happiness. It thinks it's getting it from doing this thing or having this thing or being this way or being that way, and it's not understanding it in its own self that all of those things that it thinks that it's gaining happiness or pleasure from are actually coming and going. And that's the nature of them, is that there is no happiness, true happiness in the world, because the world is always changing. So the only thing that can be true happiness, now there is happiness in the sense that you can have happiness and then by duality you can experience sadness, or you can have goodness and badness, or ups and downs, or experience of elation and depression, like calmness and anxiety, like all these different things, like you can have all of these different dualistic experiences that you can qualify as being happiness in the moment of experiencing it, and then sadness when you don't experience it, or the duality, or whatever the other end of the spectrum is. Because in the world there's dualism, and in dualism there's always an opposite to everything. And so if you always have an opposite to everything, then naturally happiness is going to have an opposite to it, and it's not actually true happiness. Now, what I'm qualifying as true happiness is actually a lasting sensation of bliss, or a lasting sensation of something that is a sense of fulfillment, like a fulfillment that is joyous and unitive towards everything, that is not dependent on anything, that just permeates through your being all the time. That's what I call true happiness. And then false happiness would be, hits of pleasure dependent on circumstances or situations. So detachment, in its sense, in its truth, is just an attachment to something beyond physicality. Detaching yourself from the world is not to completely become numb to everything and completely indifferent towards everything, in the sense that nothing is good and nothing is like, you can still experience emotions and happiness and pleasure and all these different things. It's just that your mind is not attached to those things happening in order to experience happiness. So it's like I can talk to people and I can experience happiness through their happiness. So it's like I can enjoy every single person, place, and thing to its fullest if I'm detached from the outcome of the situation, dependent on nothing. So it's like I'm basically detached from what's happening, and I'm attached to the sense of bliss that is permeating through everything. And then through that sense of bliss, then you can go back and do everything, and you can still experience the ups and downs of everything, but without the thought of up and down being good and bad. It would just be energy swaying back and forth. It's hard to describe this in a way that I'm experiencing it, because it's something that may take a little bit more time than I was expecting. So I think that the moral of this whole thing is that attachment to, or detachment from the world, implies attachment to something that's beyond the world, and that when you attach your mind to something that's beyond the world, then you experience a sense of lasting happiness and completeness and comfort and bliss inside of yourself. And the more your mind detaches itself from the outcomes inside of the world, the more it will experience bliss and joy inside of itself.